Well, good morning. I am happy to be here and hear from Mayor Anduri all that's happening in Lafayette.
Yes,
It's always fun when we have time to be here. This is great.
well, we're very excited to have you. So I think with that, as you may have heard, the meeting is being recorded. But first off, on behalf of the Lafayette Chamber of Commerce, my name is John McCormick. I'm on the Chamber Board, and I'm happy to welcome you to the July edition of Coffee with the Mayor. So it's very informal. If you've joined us before, I think most of you have. It's a great way to kind of understand what's going on in the city. With it, we'll spend the next up to hour together. So what we'll do is we will have the mayor just give us a little update on what's going on in the city, just the highlights to get us all up to speed. There've been a couple of questions that came in ahead of time, and so I think first thing we'll just do is let the mayor address a couple of those, and then we will go ahead and open up for Q&A from folks on the audience. In the audience, you can raise your hand if you want to do it that way, either physically so I can see you, or using the raise hand capability. You can also I want to also make sure, if you don't have it open already, have the chat open, because Holly Sunny, who is running the Zoom, does an amazing job of augmenting most of the comments with links and other details. So it's definitely worth keeping that in mind. So anyway, with that being said, Mayor Anduri, take it away.
All right, thank you, John, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting these coffees with the mayor. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be able to take part in these. And thanks to all of you who are up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday, summer Friday to participate. Thank you. What I thought I'd do today, since we're a little bit more than halfway through the year, is just look back on what the city, and by city I mean city staff, city volunteers, have accomplished. And it's one thing I want to point out at the outset: all of these accomplishments are over and above the usual services to which we've all become accustomed. When the council sets the priorities at the beginning of the year, we're always reminded that the bulk of the work of the city is providing those services, the recreation programs, the police services, the planning services. And so we're cautioned when we're setting priorities to remember that all of those tasks take up 95% of staff time. And we can't be super ambitious in terms of the new things that we want to add. But even with that caution, with the help of volunteers and staff going over and above, I think we've accomplished quite a bit. And by we, I mean the city, you as volunteers and the city staff have accomplished quite a bit in the first half of the year. And I'm just going to go through a list. I'm not going to spend a lot of time describing them, but just list them. And if you have any questions about any one of them, please raise it during the Q&A period. But first, we approved an updated housing element, and at least, well, the chair of our GPAC, Matt Pease, is on here. And I'm looking to see if we have other GPAC members. No, but they did a great job of bringing that to the council. Now, while the council has approved it, obviously we're still waiting for it to be approved by HCD. We've received a letter back with some changes or some comments on our element, and we're working on that. And there are some questions that we'll addressing as we the questions that have come in that I'll address when we get to the Q&A period. Second, we've been celebrating 175 plus years of Lafayette history, which I think most of us found to be very informative and enjoyable. We've tried to increase awareness of the indigenous people who were on this land before us, and trying to raise awareness of what the Lafayette Historical Society has been doing. And I'm sure you've all seen the things that have been done. I will actually try to keep my promise and just give the accomplishment and not embroider from now on. Third, we adopted and implemented a safe firearms storage ordinance. And I was really happy to see that Supervisor Anderson has introduced a similar ordinance at the county level. That would be fantastic. Fourth, the council approved a downtown mural program. Fifth, we are now partnering with Sustainable Contra Costa, and we have launched at the beginning of the year the La Miranda Sustainability Challenge. Sixth, we are collaborating with the Chamber of Commerce on outreach to downtown businesses. Seventh, our outdoor dining improvements. There'll be further improvements along Lafayette Circle in the next month, and we've extended the outdoor dining until January of 2025. 8, we're collaborating with La Miranda Village to provide services to older adults in Lafayette. 9, we've made safety improvements around each of our schools. 10, we've purchased the Campana property on Moraga Road and the police station property on Mount Diablo Boulevard. 11, we've opened the First Street Rain Garden. 12, we adopted a new traffic calming program. 13, we've been installing new signs along our creeks, identifying which creek it is. 14, we approved a 1.5 million loan to Sunflower Hill to help finance construction of 38 residential units for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And 15, we co-hosted with the Chamber, the second, and the Community Foundation, the second annual Community Day. So those are accomplishments. I had another one on the list at the beginning of the week, approval of a local road safety program, but we decided to bring that back to the next council meeting. So that will be an accomplishment as of the August 28th council meeting. But that's very exciting as part of Vision Zero to be adopting our local roads safety program. On the horizon, next two are also come from GPAC, approval of an updated safety element. I expect that will happen on August 28th as well, and then approval of an updated land use element, which the GPAC will be taking up next. Fourth, and this is maybe a little presumptuous, but approval of a land acknowledgement statement and related protocols. John is leading a group that's looking into that and will be reporting to the council. Fifth is launch of a new Lafayette business promotion website. And Councilmember Dawson has been taking the lead from the council position on that, together with Thomas Myers, Suzanne Erla, working with the chamber to develop this new website, which we're very excited about. And each of you who has a business should have received either a postcard or an email this week asking you to, well, giving you the opportunity to be listed on this website. So if you haven't responded yet, I would encourage you to do so. We'd like people to respond as quickly as possible so we can get the website up and running by early September. But I think you're going to be quite pleased with this website when it's launched. Sixth is the Slow Down Lafayette campaign. This is an effort to encourage all Lafayette residents and everyone who comes through Lafayette to drive at or below the speed limit. This is also related to our Vision Zero project because speed is the, say, the magnifying factor in the severity of any injury accident. So we want to do what we can. That program will launch just before school starts. There will be increased police presence around schools. This program will consist of education. There will be technology that will be, the council approved the police department and public works acquiring new technology during the last year that is now being deployed. You'll be able to get information on speeds on roads. We'll be putting that on our website, so it'll all be transparent. You can see what the speeds are on various roads. Watch for that to be launched also next month. We will soon be opening the new children's deck in the library. We're working on preserving our iconic reservoir tower. There's a lot going on there if anyone wants to ask later. And we'll be holding community conversations about our budget outlook and a long-term funding source. So those are things that are coming up. And the last one, I want to elaborate on that a little bit on the budget issue. Because I think since we last had a coffee, the council has approved the budget for the next year. And one of the council priorities is to develop short-term and long-term fiscal sustainability plans. And the council subcommittee for leading that effort is Councilmember Kwok and me. Last month, the council approved the budget for fiscal year 23-24, which began on July 1st. And we also looked ahead 5 years with the assumption that we would add no new programs or services. And what the 5-year outlook showed is that we would end this fiscal year, that next June 30th, with a general fund reserve surplus of 81% of general fund expenses, or $14,540,000 as a reserve. Our standard is to end the fiscal year with at least a 60% 60% reserve. So we'll be fine for this year. But we begin running deficits of about $2 million per year. And at least half of that deficit beginning next year is because of an increase in the cost of maintaining our roads. So at least half of the deficit. We estimate it'll cost $1 million more per year going forward to maintain our roads at the current PCI. So if we use our ARPA funds, our American Rescue Plan Act funds, and we have about 2.9 million still in that account that's unspent. If we use that money to fund ongoing expenses, then we can keep our reserve at that 60% level through June 30th, 2026. In other words, for the next 3 fiscal years, we'll be able to meet our reserve standard. But if we don't either increase revenues or reduce expenses, if we continue at the same pace, not adding anything, not subtracting anything, then our reserves will drop to 40% of general fund expenses at the end of the 5-year period. So the city council has asked city staff to look at what we can do to reduce expenses. So we're looking on the expense side first. Tracy Robinson is taking the lead in this. She has asked the department heads to come back to her with two things. First, where would we cut 10% of your expenses? You know, if we needed to cut by 10%, because that's the amount. Basically, we've got 22 million in expenses, 20 million in revenues. So we need to cut about 10%. So where would we cut that in your department? And then second, approaching it from a little different angle, put your expenses into 3 different categories. The first category is things that we absolutely have to do and do them at the level at which we absolutely have to do it. So that's the basic. Second, things we need to do to have a well-functioning city. So that's the second category. And the third, things that are worthwhile to do, we would miss them if they are gone, but they're not absolutely essential, sometimes referred to as the nice to haves. So those 3 categories. Now, you'll notice that I haven't included as a 4th category waste or fluff, because at least I am confident as a council member reviewing what the city is doing, that the city operates very efficiently. And so there's sometimes here, well, if you just cut out on the wasted effort, you could save a lot of money. I don't believe that is the case in Lafayette. So if we were to cut, people would notice it. And so we just want to see what those things would be that are most likely to be cut, so that the public knows about it. Then on the revenue side, I will just say that, you're all going to know where I'm headed with this. In 2016, Lafayette's sales tax was at 8.75%. And Orinda, Moraga, Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, Martinez all had the same sales tax rate, 8.75%. Today, only Lafayette of those cities is at 8.75%. Moraga and Orinda have gone up 1%. Walnut Creek has gone up 0.5%. Martinez has gone up 1%. And frankly, I can't remember whether Pleasant Hill is 0.5% or 1%. I think it's 1%. But if we were to raise our sales tax to the level of the cities that surround us, we would eliminate our annual deficit. And actually, we would increase our reserve to 96% of general fund expenses at the end of that 5-year period. So we would go from the situation we're in now to being comfortable if we were to have the same sales tax level as Moraga, Orinda, Martinez, Pleasant Hill. So you'll be hearing a lot more on this topic. When we get the information from staff, we'll go out to residents for input. This will be an ongoing discussion. And again, you'll be hearing a lot more about that throughout this year. Okay, so that's my report. And we did, as John said, we did get some questions. John, do you want me to just go ahead and set them up and respond?
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead? Just we had a couple people join. Yes, thank you for that update. So yeah, so I think Carl, we had a couple questions come in early, so I think Carl can just respond to those. But just give us a little bit of a break. So if you have additional questions that you've thought of, again, you can put them in the chat. And I see we actually have one came in on the chat, which is fine. Or you can raise your hand after Carl addresses the first two questions. So yeah, Carl, why don't you go ahead and both related to housing, unsurprisingly, I suppose, given what's been going on this year. So yes, please, why don't you go ahead and maybe you can just outline the question and then give a little response. I do want to say also before we start, I think some topics like housing and so on are real deep and detailed. And in this forum, we're not going to go, it's not going to be a super deep dive. So I think we'll answer the question to the best we can in the time allotted. And obviously there's other ways to answer things going forward. But go ahead, Carl.
Okay, and just to be more specific, these are questions about the city's response to comments raised by HCD with respect to affirmatively furthering fair housing. So the city, part of what HCD administers, there's the RENA allocation, but then there's an obligation on each city to affirmatively further fair housing. So I don't want to get these mixed up. We obviously have comments on that relate to our RENA numbers. We also got comments relating to what we're proposing to do with respect to our obligation to affirmatively further fair housing. So the staff provided guidance on how to respond to those questions. They brought that to the council 2 meetings ago. Basically, we were advised by a consultant over and above our usual consultant, Diana Elrod, who has worked with a number of cities on responding to these types of, on the affirmatively furthering fair housing issues as to how to respond. And that would be by coming back with a series of programs for addressing affirmatively furthering fair housing. So the staff presented basically 8 options to the council, and the council considered moving forward, and by moving forward, the staff had set up a meeting with our new HCD representative or supervisor. For those of you who don't know, the person who was our representative, Connor, left HCD. He's the one who provided the initial comments on the version that we submitted in July, and the comments on the final version, our approved version that we submitted in January. He is no longer there. His supervisor, Paul, has now taken over Lafayette, as well as Walnut Creek. And fortunately for us, Paul is the same person who was our representative for the last housing cycle. So he is more familiar with Lafayette. So the meeting was scheduled with him. The staff wanted to raise during that meeting some ideas as to how to meet the affirmatively furthering fair housing. Again, the council had listened to the staff's proposals, had not given final, had not said, yes, we're going to do those things. As you'll hear on some of them, we said, well, we need to get more information, but yes, do discuss those generally with Paul. So they did that. So one of the questions, the first question is from Rob Lavoie, is one of the proposals here. It would be a program for multifamily dwellings to either, and let's see, get the wording right, to, a program to regulate the unit size in moderate to large scale multifamily housing. So it could either be done by requiring a mix of unit sizes, like you have to have 50% 2-bedroom, 10% 3-bedroom, that sort of thing, or specifying a average size of a unit. So presumably relatively low average size, so that there be a larger number of units, because this is predicated on the concern that developers will tend to build larger units. Okay, so Rob's question is, how can we justify trying to legislate something that is market driven, and what are some of the unintended consequences of such a proposal? And actually, those are the concerns that I raised during the meeting. This is one where we've asked the staff to look at how it's actually been applied in other cities. There are 2 cities that have, I'm looking for my staff report from that evening. There are 2 cities that have put that in their element: Campbell, which is near certification, and Petaluma, which has been certified. But there's only one city that has an existing program, and that's Burlingame. So I've asked staff, well, the council has asked staff to find out how that program is working in Burlingame and come back to the council. Because as Rob's question implies, I think the concern is, what are the unintended consequences of setting that kind of limit? So that will be considered. And then the second question, or set of questions, is from Libby Henry. And Libby asks about another, well, the first question is about another one of the recommendations. The question is, does Mayor Anduri support or oppose the recommendations made by staff regarding expanding the development zone 1/4 mile in every direction from Mount Diablo Boulevard? And if he does support it, why? Now, that particular proposal, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I wouldn't quite characterize it as expanding a development zone. What it does is it allows conversion of existing single-family homes into 2 to 4 units within 1/4 mile of the downtown. But that conversion has to be within the existing envelope of a single-family home or duplex, but in most of that quarter area, there aren't duplexes, but it needs to be within the existing envelope. So it's not new construction outside the envelope of the existing home. So this, and when the staff came to the council, we had asked them to let us know what cities do this. And surprisingly to me, one city that has done this and their housing element has been certified is Los Altos Hills. Frankly, I can't imagine too many Los Altos Hills homes being converted from 1 single-family home to 2 single-family homes, but evidently that's they've done that. So again, we asked staff to let us know how that's working, but that's what the proposal is. It's not to change the zoning to allow building of additional units on lots. It's to allow existing dwellings to be split within the existing footprint. And the other thing that staff pointed out is that we could put limits on where this would occur, that they not be located in a very high fire hazard severity zone. And most likely that is what the council will do, although we didn't specifically discuss that. But that then would mean that we wouldn't be putting this into a place to the north of Deer Hill, for example, which is all a very high fire severity zone. So yes, I support this proposal. And unless I get information that would lead me not to, I intend to support that. Okay, and then okay, then another question would be, why are they, I think that's intended to be city staff, making statements that have no basis in fact about affordability and smaller spaces? And I disagree with the whole context of that question. I don't think the staff is making statements that have no basis in fact. So I'm not going to address that in this forum. All right, but John, I'll let you take over as mod.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mayor. That was no, it's good. Those are hard questions. It sounds like, you know, we're dealing with in kind of real time situations too, and it's a little difficult when things like the rules are changing a little bit as we're moving along, trying to finalize this. Let's move away from housing just for a bit. Then I'm sure we may end up coming back to it, but Dennis Eric in the chat did put a question, which I think is worthwhile, and that's something of interest to most people in Lafayette. What is going on with the tower? I know the council was trying to, you know, mitigate a little bit what East Bay Mud was asking, and I think it'd be great to give everybody an update on what's going on with that.
Okay, this one is very complicated. I'll try to boil it down, but beginning in 2017, East Bay Mud notified the city that the tower was considered to not be in seismic compliance and something would need to be done. East Bay Mud looked at a number of alternatives. They had a consultant, a very well-known seismic engineering firm, look at several alternatives. And what East Bay Mud is proposing is to basically lower the tower, cut about 40 feet off the tower, so it's just above the water level. When they came to the council to make the proposal, basically on top of the shortened tower, they were just going to put a platform, and on that platform would be a crane. They showed examples of what it looked like in other areas, the San Pablo Reservoir and another reservoir. To put it bluntly, those were very ugly examples. We would not want those in Lafayette. I'm surprised that East Bay Mud didn't realize that by putting those pictures on the screen at the council meeting and seeing the council reaction, in any event, it was not the way to start out. So it turns out, and I know I feel real good about this, knowing this, there are a number of world-renowned seismic engineers who've chosen to live in Lafayette, so it must really be safe here. But just with all the other issues we have within our community incredible expertise. So Gordon Chong, who himself is a world-known architect, he was president of the American Institute of Architects and chairman of our design review, put together a group of these well-known seismic engineers, and they have obtained the information from East Bay Mud that their consultants worked with, and they've analyzed it, and they basically said, well, you don't really need to shorten the tower. There's actually an alternative that may even be cheaper. I'm simplifying here, so you know, if anyone I'm simplifying. I'm just going to put that as a caveat in case things come back later. You can strengthen it. Use one of the alternatives that their engineers looked at. We're too conservative in their analysis. You can do it, and it might actually be cheaper, and that would preserve the height of the tower. Now, everyone should be aware that in order to do any of this, the top of the tower, the house, would have to be removed, and that would not come back. So in East Bay Mud's alternative, with cutting off 40 feet and then putting on, well, they responded to the comments they got from Lafayette residents by saying, yes, we'll put a replica house on top of that shortened tower. And you would need to do that on the taller preserved tower as well. It wouldn't be the current house. So we have asked, our city manager, Nurup Srivatsa, just yesterday sent a letter that was authorized by the council. Well, I should say the group came, Gordon and several of the seismic engineers came to the city council meeting on Monday and gave their report and recommended that we go to East Bay Mud and ask them to do 2 more sets of analysis, ask their engineers to look at their revision to East Bay Mud's consultants alternative 1 and see if that would work. And then also there's the big complication is that the tower is actually the spillway for the dam. There are 2 inlets in that tower, and there are 2 conduits that run out from the bottom of the tower or lower on the tower under the bottom of the dam down to Walnut Creek, to Lafayette Creek. One of those openings towards the top of the tower, or just a little bit above the water level now, is the spillway. And that cannot be, just like spillways on other dams, that cannot be closed. When water rises to that level, it goes into the tower, down and out the conduit to Lafayette Creek. The other is the outlet conduit. So if we need to lower the water level, that can be opened. Water will flow out again to Lafayette Creek. The danger is that if there is a seismic event that closes both of those conduits, then we're at risk if the dam were to overflow. Now, what you should know is that in order for those events to happen, 2 things have to happen, and neither of those things has ever happened. And this is not to say that they won't happen, but they haven't happened yet. One, we would have to experience a maximum conceivable earthquake, or whatever, MCE. I'm not sure, I can't remember what the C stands for. But that would have to happen. We have not experienced one of that in Lafayette yet, but that's the level that they're gauging the safety against. And that would have to happen. That would have to render both the spillway and the outlet inoperable. And at the same time, we would have to experience a maximum precipitation event. So at the time that the earthquake happens, either before or after, we'd have to have a maximum precipitation event. A maximum precipitation event, for purposes of their study, is 37 inches of rain in 72 hours. Now, the average rainfall in Lafayette is 25 inches a year, and this is calling for basically 150% of the average rainfall in a 72-hour period. We have not, within the 175 plus years of Lafayette history that has been recorded, experienced anything like that. So just to be aware, there is a possible danger out there, but those are the events that have to happen. So we're hoping that East Bay Mud will work with us to persuade the Division of Safety of Dams, which is the regulatory body in California for the Lafayette Dam. And they're the ones that are calling for something to be done with respect to the tower. We need to get East Bay Mud to agree with us that we don't need to move as quickly as East Bay Mud is proposing to move, that we take time to study what our engineers, the Lafayette resident engineers, are saying can be done, which would be a less intrusive alternative and would preserve a little bit of Lafayette history. As many people have said, well, as you all know, the tower was not intended to be there in that way. The tower was built before the dam was built back in the 1920s. The dam was built originally to a higher level, and then it settled. And it was decided not to rebuild to the full height, and that's why the tower is higher than it needs to be. But over time, it's turned out that the proportion of the tower and the reservoir, it's all come together to create quite an ambiance that I think people would miss if it weren't there. Okay, so I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, but I just want to, are there any follow-up questions on this? Because this is an ongoing saga. We in Lafayette have enjoyed a very strong relationship with East Bay Mud over the years. They've been, very cooperative. The community garden is on their land. They've just been good citizens. So we're hoping that they'll work with us on this, and we also hope that the Division of Safety of Dams will as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. That was a good even I didn't realize a lot of things have happened recently. So it was a good update. Sounds like it won't be settled anytime soon, but there's some good progress, which is exciting. So let's go ahead and open up for questions from anybody in the audience, either following up on the tower or anything else that's on people's minds. As I mentioned, I think Mayor did a great job outlining the accomplishments for the first half of the year and the objectives for the second half. There's a lot on their plate. But are there anybody have any questions? Go ahead and raise your hand using the functions, or just raise your hand physically, and we can go ahead and take any questions that you have. Yes, Jenna.
Well, I don't have a specific question, but Carl, when you listed all of the things that the city's involved in, I couldn't resist chiming in and saying that all the support from the city for the Park Theater Trust effort to reinvigorate the Park Theater has been really important to our efforts to fundraise to bring that theater back. So we really, really appreciate the city support on that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I hope it looks like it will be future mayor. I hope it's Mayor Dawson who was able to list the reopening of the Park Theater as an accomplishment.
Excellent. Yes, I agree. I second that opinion. Any other questions for the mayor? We have him for a few more minutes. Well,
I don't know if
hi.
Rob, you want to chime in, but I know you just sent an email with some more questions. Do you want to ask it live?
Sure, yes. I had a somewhat longer question, so I put it in the chat so I didn't bore everyone with the details, but I did want to follow up on Libby's question and just sort of outline some of the extent of the proposed map for that quarter-mile extension, and just help people understand what the proposal is. So let me just try and summarize that up. What's in the comments completely. The question is would the mayor consider maybe a more compact map centered around the services, the sort of the core of the city, which is, I would define the core, you guys might think differently, but between Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, This is sort of the primary core of Lafayette. We have BART station in the center of that. The primary services, groceries, banking, pretty much the essential services, all the gas stations, not all of them, but you know, you can get everything you need in that core. And so if you define that as the core and you say we want housing to be walkable from that core, then how far out do you go from that core? And the way the city staff has defined it currently is sort of the extent of the borders, which are already, you know, quarter to a half a mile from that area. And so I did a little research on their map, and I outlined like how far this proposal goes. It goes up into Happy Valley, into Baker Lane, and via Media, up into Happy Valley Glen, which the mayor pointed out might be eliminated with the high fire zone exclusion. Going over to Perales and in the Acalanes neighborhood, east of Pleasant Hill Road, into Old Tunnel Road and Buchan and Lindsay and Hodel and Stanwood, sort of south of Mount Diablo and east of Pleasant Hill, on Moraga Road, which is my neighborhood. Well, actually, Moraga Boulevard goes over to Victoria and Carol Lane and Judith and Janet. All those.
Hey, Rob. Rob, I don't want to stop you. I just want to say, is there a question that we have for the mayor?
Yeah, the question was, would the mayor support a more compact map? And so I just was trying to define some of the edges.
Right.
Which I think
It's just hard a little bit with the you know, just in the audio setting.
Yeah.
But I think the gist of your question is pretty clear that you know, it could be a big or small depending on
It's
what the goals. I don't
pretty
know.
big
Mayor, do you
now,
have
and I just wondered if he considered shaving that down a little bit to focus on the actual goals of the AFFH and in terms of
All right.
walkability.
Great, thank you, Rob.
Well, I just would note that the goals at AFFH are actually to get housing further away from the downtown as well.
But that's assuming that some neighborhoods are less, what do you call it, have fewer benefits.
Resources. I know.
Resources.
Well, the whole thing with the AFFH in Lafayette is counterintuitive. It just, I have a great deal of difficulty with it. I mean, basically, as you know, some of the challenges to our, and this now goes over to the RENA side of what the General Plan Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, the Council have done with respect to where the zoning has occurred, been challenges that it's all been within the area that you've described. And I would say that's the perfect area for housing in Lafayette, because as you say, it's walkable. I mean, where else do you get walkability to 13 K to 12 schools, to the everything is there. And so anyway, all I can say, it's counterintuitive. We're in a difficult situation because we want to get our housing element approved. Obviously, it's not as simple as, and I'm not saying anyone who's part of this meeting is saying this is, you know, just stand up to HCD, just tell them no. It doesn't quite work that way. So we need to come up with something that's going to be accepted. It's a difficult challenge, and I understand where you're heading on that. It's a difficult challenge. But I have to say specifically, I have not seen the map. Did the staff post? Because I know that the meeting, it was asked for, and staff said they were in the process of creating it. Has it now been?
Well, they published one last meeting on the 10th, and I shared it with Holly so that anybody that would like to see it can have it. It's very blurry, but I went through and figured out, and it's in the comments, the chat, the extent of the map right now. So I think it would be shocking to people, and it also creates some irregular boundaries, like, you know, halfway through, like road court, things.
Yeah,
like
let me stop you there, because I think the staff was going to look at that, because I think one of the comments was please include street names so we know for sure where this is. So I think they're working on that, and I'm waiting to see the map.
That's right. I do see, Rob. I see you put it in an email, and I think you're right. That was like a screen capture. So I think we should probably wait for the staff one to get there. But yeah, I agree. I think everybody would be interested to see what that actually is.
Yeah, I just wanted people to realize it's changing things dramatically. And if you bought a house thinking that, you're in a single family neighborhood and all of a sudden there's 4 people living in the house next to you and cars all over the street, it could have a significant impact on how you perceive the neighborhood, especially on some of these little
Sure.
cul-de-sacs with no curbs and sidewalks and stuff.
Let
Fair
me
enough.
just
All
say,
right,
this comes back to the council, both the firmly furthering fair housing part and the RENA part will be back in front of the council on August 28th. I've asked staff to get the staff report out as early as possible, and they're looking at, what they can do. Watch for that.
Maybe they can put it in a roundup and get it broader circulation in the community, because I think it'll shock some people.
Well, that is accessible from the roundup each week, the staff report.
Thank you.
all right, great. Yeah, thank you. So I guess maybe the next coffee after the 28th meeting on the 28th will be interesting update from Mayor Anduri. Excellent. Thank you, Rob. All right. Are there any other questions for the mayor? No. Oh, Libby, yes. I know he did answer one of your questions, but do you have something else? And you have to unmute yourself too. There.
I know that. Hi.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
This is pertaining to the back to the tower, the reservoir tower. Who do we as citizens, who can we contact or confer with about this issue? Because this seems to be another one of those non-issues that they're creating. 90 years that tower has stood and nothing has happened. So what is the entity? Who are the people that we can contact to address? Because I know a lot of people, a lot of us that walk around the reservoir every day, we're going, what? So I'd like to be able to relay to them who we can contact.
Yep. Well, we, the city, and then also, just so you're all aware, John Coleman, who is a Lafayette resident, and I'm just looking, is John on today? John is the member of the East Bay Mud governing body. He's the representative for the district that's west of the hills. And he's been a great, in my personal opinion, he's been a great representative for us on the East Bay Mud Board. And John understands completely our concerns and agrees with them. John and the city had asked East Bay Mud to hold a public forum, and that actually they did arrange that. It was scheduled for 2 days ago, Wednesday evening. It was to be at Stanley beginning at 6 o'clock. But we asked them to postpone that because we wanted to give time for our, well, not our, but the seismic engineer group resident in Lafayette to look at the information with East Bay Mud and meet with East Bay Mud and see if there could be some sort of resolution. There has been a meeting. There's not a resolution. We've sent the letter that I described. We're hoping that that'll get some results. But at some point, when there's a better understanding on the engineering sides, yes, there will be a public meeting in Lafayette that citizens come to. In the meantime, you can write to Clifford Chan, the general manager of East Bay Mud, or you could write to our representative, John Coleman. And all the information is on the East Bay Mud website. But the ultimate decision is likely to be made by the Division of Safety of Dams.
I do know when John Coleman presented to the chamber board, he was definitely encouraging people to reach out to him directly if they had any concerns or questions. So we should take him up on that. Thank you, Libby. Are there any other questions for the mayor as we wrap up? Well, if not, I do want to point, I want to turn over to Holly for a final recap of what's going on in the city. But I want to also point out just our next coffees, as you see in the chat that Holly did. So next month, on the 25th, we're going to have Candace Anderson be our featured speaker, which will be very exciting. So I think we'll get a chance to look at the things happening. We talk about things at the city level and the state level, but the county actually has a lot going on that impacts all of our lives. And so we're excited to hear.
Absolutely. And I want lots of questions. I can't answer the great questions about the reservoir. I can certainly talk about Rena. Just talk to my friends in Alamo. They're feeling the same as we are. It's a challenge, but I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing from you directly, and then we'll hear back from Mayor Anduri on October 27th. But Holly, I don't know if you want to let us know what's going on. It's a little bit of a quiet time for the chamber, but there's still plenty that's going on.
Hey, art and
We
wine.
strive to make it a quiet time at the chamber, but we were not successful. So I would like to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Mayor Anduri, for most informational coffee I believe that we've ever had. So I greatly enjoyed today's information recap and looking forward. And thank you again, John, for being our MC. The chamber has 3 networking events coming up next month. One is our young professionals group, who's actually going to do a joint mixer with the Pleasanton young professionals at the Sideboard location in Danville on August 10th. Our Lafayette Business Women's group is going to meet at Town Hall Theater on August 16th. That is a new group that started this year. We typically have 30 to 40 area business women that come to our meetings once a month. It's a great networking group. And the chamber is going to have its quarterly mixer along with the Moraga Chamber and the Orinda Chamber on August 23rd. And that's going to be at the Bruns, which is our Cow Shakes location in Orinda. If you haven't seen, the Bruns has really reinvented itself as an event center for community events, concerts, etc., not just the Shakespearean plays that we've experienced for quite a few years. So you want to check out what's going on there and join us for a mixer on August 23rd. So we have quite a busy August, and as you can imagine, the staff and city and a lot of our businesses and organizations are all preparing for the 26th annual Lafayette Art and Wine Festival. So the big thing to note about this year, it's actually that the weekend of September 23rd and 24th. This is a weekend later due to a Jewish holiday. So please help us get the word out that it's September 23rd and 24th. But if you happen to be downtown the weekend before, the businesses will love to see you as well. Another fall community event before we get into all the crazy holiday stuff is actually our Lafayette Res Run for Education, and talk about our good connections with East Bay Mud. This is the 31st Lafayette Res Run for Education. The 10K actually goes around the reservoir, the 2-mile and the 5K just go up and back on Mount Diablo. Registration is now open. We typically give a few tens of thousands of dollars back to our schools, the PTA and the sporting events as a result of this great community event. The date is August 22nd, and we start the races at 8 a.m. So all the information is on our website. Our board members are on this call. Our board members are all around town. We have a great staff, including 2 new staff members. So feel free to reach out with any questions you can have about the chamber. So thank you again, Mayor and John.
All right, everybody. Well, have a great Friday and enjoy this beautiful weather this weekend.